What's the creepiest thing someone has ever told you?
I went to middle school in a not-so-good neighborhood, so lots of kids were involved in gang activity. This one kid had some anger issues but honestly wasn't a bad person and we got along well. One day in class he leans over and asks, "Do you want to see it?" And before I could reply he flashes a gun from his bag. Immediately my face fell and he follows it up with, "Don't worry, you're good." This could have very easily been a much worse situation. Middle school me wasn't smart enough to tell anyone, but I told him to leave it home since the staff could check our lockers and bags. I wasn't worried about him using it in school, but I should have been. Thank goodness nothing ever happened.
Your pheromones smell good. I was a 16-year-old girl. The person saying it was my stepfather. We were alone in the car together on an hour-long drive.
Not told me but showed me. When I was in middle school, this girl sat by me at the lunch table and showed me that she carved my name into her arm and then went on to tell me she loved me. I had never said anything more than hi while walking by her before that.
Once when I was 11 I was eating a popsicle on the promenade when a homeless man came up to me and whispered in my ear that I have a very sexy mouth. I've never eaten a popsicle or ice cream in public since.
When I was at university, during the summer I go back home and work on farms, mostly picking up hay. Every year there'd be different workers. Some good, some bad. Some, well, one, downright scary. This one bloke had been in the Mongrel Mob, a gang in New Zealand which tends to attract the absolute scum of society. He, though, wasn't too bad a chap. Quite funny and hardworking. Just what you want in your team when you're spending 10 hours a day picking up hay bales. One day, I was driving the truck to another farm with him riding shotgun. We started talking about one of the other workers. I knew him from uni and he had come up for the work on my suggestion. At uni he seemed a decent sort, but he soon showed his true colors of being a useless, racist poss. I was complaining about the useless prick, apologizing for being responsible for him being there. I jokingly suggested maybe we could arrange a farm accident. Tractor back over him, a stack of hay bales collapse on him. That sort of thing. At this point the mongrel mobster casually mentioned he knew people who, for just $5,000, would kill and dispose of anyone. Said they had a setup out in the bush. NZ speak for middle of nowhere, where they'd feed the body to pigs then dispose of any remains, teeth, bones, in an acid bath. The completely casual way he spoke of this was really unsettling.
Around 8 years old, I was waiting outside the Disneyland bathroom for my dad who was in there for a while now, long line. And some guy who looked like a grandfather came up to me and yelled in a shaky voice, "Come on, Jake. I can't stand here forever, now. I'm a girl," so that made it even weirder. At first I thought he was talking to someone else, but he came closer and got irritated, saying, "Jake, don't ignore me." I started looking at him with a clearly confused face, trying to signal that asterisk I don't know who the beep Jake is, please go away. Asterisk but he got even closer and grabbed my arm and started pulling me away, saying, "We are going to sit down, Jake. Come on." I was trying to stay put but this guy was strong and eventually, my legs wouldn't stay and he effectively dragged me out of my place. At this point, I started screaming but it was more unintelligible shrieks and people must have thought that I really was Jake, and I was just resisting, not that I didn't even know who the beep this guy was. Luckily though, my dad came out of the bathroom then and pulled me back, and started yelling at the guy. The security got involved and apparently, the guy's grandson was named Jake, who had a seizure and died inside that bathroom over a year ago. The grandfather had some form of Alzheimer's and stayed there every weekend just waiting for his grandson to come out of the bathroom.
I had a coworker tell me, I could probably just kill someone and not feel anything about it. Especially if they had it coming, mind you. This was after we got done chatting about his mutually toxic relationship.
In high school a girl a year older than me wrote, "Death waits for no one," in my yearbook. She passed away a few years later and I still think about what she wrote. Edit. Some of you have asked. She passed away in a car accident.
Towards the end of our marriage, my ex-husband got really angry with me one day and began to explain in detail how he could murder me and get away with it. He laid out every detail and gave rationales behind each one to prove why his method would be foolproof and result in him never getting caught. It really made me open my eyes to his abuse and fear for my life knowing he had been meticulously planning this out in his head. It made it worse that he had gotten to the point that he was comfortable sharing this with me, as if I wouldn't be around long enough to do anything about it.
When I was 16, I had a male therapist tell me that men can't help feeling attracted to me because my eyes and lips make me look like I'm aroused. I was speaking to him partly because I had been assaulted by an adult male that year. I was so embarrassed I never told anyone about this, and I am still mad at myself for not saying anything.
This was stupid on my part. Met up with a guy I knew from a video game. He gets in my car and the first thing he does is whip out a knife and tell me he likes knives. Knew I would never do that beep again after that.
All women should be raped to put them in their place. Yeah, I don't associate with him anymore.
The one that sticks out the most is when I was 18 and working in a music store. A man asked for some help finding some CDs, so he gives me the names and I don't see it on the shelf, but we had all of our understock under the shelves, so I went on my hands and knees to look, found the CDs and grabbed the albums he wanted. Stood up and said, "Here you go. That should all the ones you wanted." And before I could say anything he goes, "I bet you spend a lot of time of your hands and knees, huh?" In a rather sexual suggestive tone. I had no idea what to do, so just awkwardly giggled and asked if he needed any more help finding things, and he said no, so then I quickly ran into the back and waited 5-ish minutes for him to check out and leave.
Back in middle school, a girl asked me if I had a peanut allergy. Being the dumb 7th grader I was, I said no and didn't think much of it. Turns out, she was intending to give someone an allergic reaction. My friend overheard her talking about it and told a teacher before telling me. It's one of those scenarios where it isn't creepy outright, just a little weird without context, but when you know the context, it becomes disturbing.
A girl in middle school told me she had a hit list. It wasn't exactly a secret, it was literally written on the cover of her binder entitled, "People to Kill." I wish I was kidding.
My wife's cousin told me my daughters were very hot. He was 31. My children were 5, 6 and 8.
One of my friends was telling me about a really homophobic part of Canada that she lives in. She said when she was around 14, a group of older, cool kids in her school came up to her and pinned her against the wall and proceeded to carve F***GGOT on her back somewhere around her shoulder. She isn't even gay. She just dressed like guys sometimes and wasn't really girly, so they automatically assumed she was gay. People are awful, man.
My brother, who has been addicted to drugs in the past, told me a story about a meth binge I'll never forget. He claimed to have been up for about 2 weeks straight on the stuff, and on the last night he was alone, driving around at night, and said he felt like he was the only person in the world. No other cars or people were in his perception. He made to his driveway and said the moment he turned off the car, there was suddenly a massive army of shadow people outside his car, kicking and screaming at him. He said it felt like someone was shaking the car around and trying to open the door. He decided to open it, and as soon as he did, they all vanished and he was alone again. He said that experience made him eventually quit, and he has been clean for over a year now.
When in school, I had a rotation on a psych unit, and one of the patients was describing this woman he saw through the window and how he wanted to kill her and do horrific things to her on the hood of his car. Then he looked at my classmates and said that he would do it to them too. Needless to say, he got to stay on the unit longer because of that.
If the purge ever happened in this school, I would rape you.
I worked with a guy recently out of prison for manslaughter. He described it as a murder.
You wear the same perfume as my mannequin.
May your day be filled with joy and happiness. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe for more quality content every day.